live intro music. Welcome to whatever theme we come up with,
No, I don't really know what our
which will
show's
be
going to be called for sure yet. Crypto chats? I don't know. It's a little silly. Crypto chat. We'll have to.
yeah. We'll have to get a better name. I think. I think that like we can have a
I
think
think
about
so
that.
too.
Maybe that's something we can chat to after we have done the kind of like official recording, because it might come organically through just actually having the
Mhm.
conversation and just like what themes need to come up. But yeah, I have a high level overview. So we're just going to do a little intro on each of us. But Martin, you had me down for hosting today, which I'm more than happy to do. The
Yeah,
only thing is we might have to re-record the intro to it because we don't have a name yet. That's the only thing that we might have to attach. But we can just start with welcome to our very first podcast, and we'll have the intro music, and I can do a little introduction for you guys if you're happy with that, and then we just dive in.
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
So, welcome to our networks, our new audiences. You found us. This is our very first podcast. I'm going to introduce you to, let the cast introduce themselves. So we've got Martien. Martien, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. Well, I'm Martien and I'm from the Netherlands. I'm based near Amsterdam and I'm in the crypto industry for about 5 years right now. And I'm currently working on a project that is evolving in Web3 as well. But anyways, I've been a project manager, chief of staff at Constellation Network. And so as chief of staff and as project manager, you get to know a lot of things about blockchain, crypto, and Web3 from a high level perspective. So I do not have like any detailed information, but I don't think it's very relevant now. Just high level, and experienced a lot myself as well in the crypto and blockchain industry. So I'm happy to share all my learnings, my bloopers, my mistakes, but also all the fun stuff. And actually, we are recording this because Andrea and I were talking for I think already almost a year now about everything that's going on in blockchain and crypto and Web3 and AI. And at some point we decided, well, we should record this stuff because it's highly valuable information for different people that want to get introduced to crypto or that want to land a new job in the Web3 industry. So, and then we found George. Well, George,
Yeah,
maybe
I
you can
crushed
introduce
it.
yourself now as well.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Yes, so I've definitely crashed the party. This is something that's been happening for a while, but Martin and I have worked on kind of different projects, different ideas, and we've also done a panel together, which was really fruitful. And I think this is, off the back of that, we had such great feedback. So I think this is why we're creating this today. From the feedback we got from that session, and also just how we want to kind of present ourselves in the Web3 space. But a little bit of background on me. So I started my kind of crypto journey with some personal investments, and then I worked with a company called Block One, and we helped them with their kind of brand identity from a company level, and bought out of that we birthed Bullish, which is now a centralized exchange based out in Hong Kong. So that kind of how I dipped my toe into the Web3 space. From that, the last couple of years, I've been working with the Alchemy Group. I helped found the Web3 agency there called Agency, spelt phonetically, very awkward. But it's been a really good fun, good ride. And now I'm looking to kind of set my sights on something new. And this is a part of that journey. So yeah, I've had a really nice kind of introduction to it. Had some great stories along the way, some wins and some losses in the crypto space, which we're definitely to talk about. One in particular today,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just been a really good ride, and I just really want to kind of share that with people thinking about even stepping into it. So that's why I'm here today. And so yeah, I'll pass over on to Andrea to give a bit of a review of her background as well.
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Andrea Mullaney, and I actually bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. I've been in the industry a long time. And I sold it luckily before Mt. Gox crashed because I bought Bitcoin at $50 and sold it at 1,000 each. So,
Oh
but I only
wow,
had five. But still,
yeah,
I was, I
pretty
was
good.
hooked from that point forward. Yeah, I got back in 2016, but I constantly followed it. I was really excited about, the whole concept of Bitcoin because, it was released right after the 2008 economic disaster in America. So I was always into it. And at the same time, my day job, I was a marketing director, and I had been for 20 years. I've been a marketing director. And then, and then in 2020, I mean, I've been in so many projects. I was in like 100 different Telegram groups. I was like super degen and just, learning about DeFi and everything back in 2020. I was in a particular project and I was trying to explain what LP staking was and all these things because it had just come out. And a marketing consulting company found me and they're like, hey, you think you could help us out and write some articles and review projects and join us? And I'm like, yeah, I can. So yeah, they plucked me out of a Telegram group and I joined them and it was awesome. I mean, I worked with them on the side for a year or so and then reviewed like 50, 60 projects, wrote scripts, like did all kinds of marketing stuff for them and got introduced to Constellation Network as and became their ecosystem marketing director. And then I was promoted to the senior director of marketing for Constellation, and I worked with Martien, and it was awesome. Constellation was a blast. I mean, when I first got there, we actually worked with a bunch of startup companies and companies that Constellation was incubating, and helped to introduce them to Web3, like really help them with their go-to-market strategies, build their communities, really get going. Because I had been a community person for so many years that I knew exactly what worked and what didn't work. And so, yeah, we just got in there. It was an exciting space. We're still there. I'm working for one of those startup companies right now, helping them out, and they're in building a healthcare app. It's called Genico. And, we're securing funding right now still, but it's super exciting. It's a healthcare app that you will actually own your healthcare data and have the option to monetize it, and participate in studies and things like that. So there's a corporate side to it that companies that are willing to buy your data and lease your data actually, and so you have total control of it. You can choose to lease it or not, and you get rewarded in crypto tokens, and you can use the tokens to either convert to fiat or to purchase like personalized healthcare recommendations based on AI and all the data that we're gathering. And so anyway, it's very exciting. It's a great space to be in. I love talking about Web3 and evangelizing it and educating people on it. So anyway,
Yeah,
and I'm
I
here.
think
Martien and I used to talk every other week.
Yep.
Let's
other
record
week.
this and help some people.
I think that's a great jump off point as well, because I think whilst we're doing this today, we all have recognised we've been in the space for a fair few years now, and there's probably a lot of assumed assumption around what Web3 is, and I think it can be a scary place for some people. So I think the first theme I wanted to kick off as our host today was talking about really what Web3 is, and for a lot of people it's a new concept. So how would you guys define Web3 in simple terms, and why would you consider it a significant evolution in the history of the internet today? Feel free, anyone, to jump in on that one.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting question, and I think if you can answer the question what is Web3 by answering what is Web 1 and Web 2. And I remember a presentation you did, George, while we were in London, and you did a great presentation on what is Web 1, 2 and 3. And can I summarize it? So you can
absolutely, yeah, please
check if I'm correct.
See if I did a good job.
Okay, so if I yeah, exactly. So how I explain it to people is like this. Remember back in 1996 when you sent your first emails and you went online and you just tried to find something. That's it. You're just retrieving information. That's it. That's the only thing you could do. It's like a library online. And that's Web 1. Web 2 for me was like, it's not only about retrieving information from the internet, but also pushing information. So it's going back and forth. Like the apps we can do right now, we can just share information. We can share things about our feelings, our emotions. That's Web 2. And then Web 3, that's like the very big, beautiful house. I remember you showed me a picture. A very big, beautiful house that is really rebuilt. Web 3 is rebuilding the internet. It's about transfer of value. It's not only about information and sending information, receiving information, but also about transferring value. And to me, and then you get to the point about decentralization and stakeholder economy. And I think that's the beauty of Web3, is that we can all share value and transfer that value. But please add some more light to this. George, you probably can.
No, I think that's,
but that's
a really
how
lovely,
I see it. So
lovely
just
summary.
From a high level perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's what we kind of start off with. This is really just high level, and that if you start to scratch the surface about things like transfer value piques your interest. Well, what do you, that's when you start going down the Web3 rabbit hole and start learning a little bit more. And as you pointed out, Andrea, like Genico, they do a great job of how that value is transferred. Do you just want to tell a little bit about how the kind of concept of that works, just to kind of put it together for people listening?
Sure. Now, I also want to go back to like my understanding of Web 1, 2, and 3. I view it as same thing as Martien, really, and you, George. So Web 1 is the read-only web. It's like brochure sites. You would just library. Go, and maybe like the grass shoots of e-commerce when you might be able to buy a couple things online. You're like, oh, cool. And Web 2 was social media, where you can actually post your own stuff. You have your own space, and you can, add your own content. YouTube, Facebook. Facebook was like one of the first social media apps where you could post things, and that led to the growth of big tech. So you had all these big companies that were, offering these social media tools and cool software that you could use for free. But really, of course, when something's free, it means you're the product, right? So they were gathering your data, you would post your pictures and your videos, and then really they were sitting on the company's servers. And if for some reason, something happened, and they could shut off your account, and you would lose all of that. You would lose all your content. And they'd also serve ads to you based on your profile, your likes, and what you buy online and all that stuff. So, although it was a great service, because we really were able to, connect with the whole world through Web 2, we didn't own our information. And so that is how I see Web 3 changing things so much, is that people become owners of their data and actually participate as a stakeholder. It's called the stakeholder economy, where someone is actually, where you're actually participating. And like, if you like something, instead of just liking it, you actually would get rewarded for your sentiment. You
get rewarded for the attention.
Yes,
you get actually rewarded for.
Exactly. Yeah. It used to be as many, get all the eyeballs, get as many eyeballs as you can. And, that's how companies were, viewed success. But now, the people deserve to be paid back for that attention. Yes, in Web 2, they did get, the benefits of their social media, their space to put their stuff and share and everything. But there was no monetization of it, and no real value transferring. And that's where that whole value transformation thing, the value transfer comes in with Web3. You can get paid in cryptocurrency, and it can only really be done in cryptocurrency. So that's a thing. People don't really get the use of crypto and what it is. It's not just it's not for speculation. That's not its main purpose. Of course, right now, that's what everyone's doing. But it really is a way of transacting value on a decentralized network. And so with Web3, people, there's not one big, giant, monstrous database, behind everything with all of these servers. individual people each have a piece of the data. So that, and it's called running a node. You have a piece of the network. So everybody, there's like folks with nodes that are supporting the network all around the world, and they get compensated for giving their compute power to support that network. They're compensated in the crypto that runs on that network. And so,
I think it's a great point, because what you are getting paid for your attention, and what is one of the most valued things you have is time. It's almost priceless. And if you give your time, your attention to someone else, to a brand or to a company, you should actually be paid for that, because your time is very valuable. You only have so much in your entire life. You don't know how much, luckily, but you do. So you should get paid for that.
There's a couple of points that we kind of talked about. And I'm just thinking, just thinking for the listeners and the people kind of coming into this, fresh and not knowing too much about Web3. I think there's a couple of great points there. And we talk about decentralized and think about centralized, and how Web3 is a maturity that we've all pretty much lived and experienced, right? So now as mature internet users, we kind of understand how Web2 was monetized, right? And that was done through centralized companies, and they were making money off of our attention, time, all the things that we've just talked about. And when you bring that decentralized nature, it gets a bit more, it's more autonomy across and a fair split across internet users. So I think that's something that once that clicked in my head, that made things really make sense for me of why we might want to be going down this route, and why it's so important to have that kind of fairer share of the kind of growth of the internet. So I always try to draw back and think about, if I was, my younger self going through this, and what sort of things clicked in my head to make it really work. And I think, when you talk about the nodes and how you have the kind of computational power that's shared, and that's where you get rewarded for it, that's very exciting. It seems a little bit scary, but when you look about it and strip it back at the brass tacks, it's just companies identifying, saying, hey, we're going to make some money, but you can make some money for your value too. We're not just going to rinse you. Exactly. We're not going to do what the centralized companies have done for the last years. And it's just respecting that we have grown within this space, and we understand how money's made on the internet. So I think that's quite a nice way to summarize it for people brand new to this space.
Yeah, and I believe if you are able to understand this concept, you'll be able to see the business opportunities that come from that. So when we are discussing this from a point of view for business owners or for managers in big companies, if you understand this concept, you can see the possibilities, and then we can go into the mechanics of that, like what does crypto do in relation to Web3? What does blockchain do? What does nodes do? Or what do nodes do? What is NFTs? How do all these mechanics, how can they serve you to be part of the Web3 industry, basically?
Yeah, I think that's really...
And how does
that's something for later.
Yes.
Yeah. And how does decentralization help your business? Because a lot of people are like, why would I even bother? It's working so well centralized. So there, not every industry is suited to it, but many are. And it's just thinking differently about, how you would operate your business. And I mean, think of the Internet of Things, where things can talk to each other with smart contracts, can revolutionize factories and supply chains and all this stuff too. It's really quite exciting.
I also think, to your point about how people can get involved and why they should get involved, if we think about any sort of like innovation line, a really classic one is, back in the day, cave paintings were to capture memories, and we see the evolution of cave paintings to art, to the first camera, to a digital camera, to your phone. We didn't know that we would get to a phone. The job at the start was to capture memories, right? That was the job that we were trying to achieve. So at the moment, there's this vehicle, Web3 technology, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like for companies. We've got some really great business case solutions now. But you might be a business owner listening to this and being like, yeah, Web3 isn't for me. I don't know. I don't need it. It's working great, as you said, with a centralized company. But if you don't innovate and look to kind of keep up with what's working, and if there's more money to be made, and we can go into probably in a future podcast about the power of having a token that's sitting in your business, and the potential for that could be huge. But it's always good to intrigue. I think the famous story was Polaroid or Canon or someone had a digital camera sitting in their top drawer for years, and they didn't want to change their business model because they were making so much
Yeah.
money from printing photos. The same with Blockbuster. Their business model was built on late fees. The innovation was there. Streaming was sucky, but Netflix blew them out the water, and then iPhones blew out. All of these other business out the water. So yeah, I think definitely being inquisitive about this technology, because there's probably going to be a way that you can solve it within your vertical that we haven't even thought about yet, or someone in Web3 hasn't thought about yet.
Exactly. And what we're going to do in these podcasts is going to tell you everything about all the mechanics that's going on, give you a high level overview of what Web3 is so that you can see the business opportunities.
Absolutely.
That's one angle.
Some business use cases and things like that. Yeah, and GeniCo, I never answered the question about GeniCo exactly and what they're doing. It's healthcare data it's perfect for a Web3 kind of blockchain infrastructure because all the different hospitals and healthcare facilities, especially in the United States, have it's so fractured. They all have different systems where they're maintaining the healthcare data of their patients, and we have HIPAA compliance, which is so rigorous here, and you have to be very careful with people's data. And so with the blockchain, everything is encrypted, it's highly secure, it's HIPAA compliant for the most part, and you're actually able to with the GeniCo app, you can upload your healthcare records, and you have in the United States, you have the right to get your healthcare data from whatever hospitals or clinics you're going to. You have the right to request your healthcare records, and you own them. And so you can upload that data into the GeniCo app and have that data available, and then get your DNA data. And we work with several labs, and you can order genetic reports and get your DNA data. And then we're using AI in the back end to kind of crunch all of this data and provide, based on with AI crunching it, giving you personalized healthcare recommendations based on your genetic profile and your lifestyle choices. And so, we're trying to unload, as many people as possible, and then everyone will be sharing their information and, putting in their data, and with their own personal AI assistant that can kind of, help them out with, like, oh, I had this for breakfast and I'm having a stomach ache right now. And then your AI assistant will remember, oh, that's probably because this had wheat in it and you're gluten intolerant. Don't forget. You can do as much as that. And all of this is private in your own little walled garden. And you have all of that data about yourself. And you can choose it. You own it. And you can choose to participate in studies. So we'll have this whole healthcare data exchange where pharmaceutical companies, consumer goods products and companies, they do a lot of research for people, like what skincare works with different genetic types and things like that. And, if they conduct a study, they're like, hey, this one's paying $500 if you want to, in GeniCo tokens. And if you want to participate, just let us know. And you can opt in to those particular pools and participate in those pools. And then you're rewarded. And so you're leasing your data and you're rewarded in tokens. And with those tokens, you can then, there's this little economy in the exchange where you can purchase those personalized healthcare reports. Like if you smoke cannabis, it's like, what is the best cannabis that matches my DNA type? What about diet and exercise? And what kind of skincare products work best with me? And eventually we plan to onboard remote medical advice and things. And, you can get what pharmaceuticals work best with me. I have high blood pressure. Which ones work best? Which medications work best with my genetic profile and things like that. So, it's crazy. And AI and Web3 are just kind of converging. And decentralization and AI and the whole concept of automatic smart contracts and all of this stuff, owning your data, processing big data. That's another thing blockchain helps with, is processing big data.
Yeah, 100%.
It's all converging right now. And really, it's just going to hit us like a ton of bricks. It's going to change everything.
I think it's
because
worth
now
mentioning.
we can see what the utility. Oh, sorry.
I'll let you go, Martien.
I think now we. I wanted to say that now is the time that we're going to see the utility of things. So a few years ago, companies started, like Constellation Network, built out their own DAG, and other companies built their blockchains, and everybody was saying, what are we going to do with this? Why do we need this? But now we are getting into a phase that we see what we actually use blockchains for. And people are getting Web3 now, but we need that blockchain to move forward with all the utility ideas that are in the make.
Yeah, I think there's a few words and maybe kind of things that have been thrown out there, and we're going to do a little dictionary at the end for anything that we've talked about that might not be, if you're not a Web3 native, you might not understand. Equally, if we miss anything, pop it in the comments and we'll happily, give you an explanation, and we can bring it to the front of our next podcast or to kind of bookend this one as well. But yeah, it's a crazy world, and I think what some of the kind of fears around it is because there are a lot of acronyms and a lot of kind of jargon in the space. It can seem scarier than it actually is, and I'm always looking how to kind of simplify it. Like, we interact with different protocols all the time. We don't necessarily know the kind of full depth of how that works, and we have to understand it as kind of Web3 natives and builders and creators in this space. But if you want to interact with it, you don't have to have the full kind of deep level of understanding. You just need to know the benefits, like you just said, about, blockchain, for example, is great for processing big data or distributed node networks or whatever it is. These things are really exciting and could be a way for your business to optimize or reduce costs or whatever it might be. So yeah, there's lots of exciting stuff there. Another feature, I'm going to move us on, so we kind of keep to what we're doing today. But I'm going to move on to the news hour. So a big kind of conversation over this year really has been around the Bitcoin ETF and how that's going to have an impact on the market. Andrea, do you want to have a little talk about what that is, what that means, and maybe some opinions of what you think might be happening in 2024? And then Martien, I'll pass it over to you.
Sure. So the Bitcoin ETF, an ETF is an exchange traded fund. And what that means is that now Wall Street firms can offer Bitcoin on an exchange. So on their exchanges, they can offer it to their traditional investors. As opposed to having to go to a crypto exchange to buy Bitcoin, you can now work with BlackRock or Fidelity, there's all these big guys, and they can put your money into a Bitcoin fund. And so now Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. So it actually, there are other things that it's doing now too, the network, of course. I'm not going there. But so Bitcoin, which was the very first cryptocurrency, has now become legitimized as an investment opportunity. So, and the thing is, though, it can be a pretty good investment because Bitcoin actually is deflationary. It's got a set amount that will ever be minted, and that's 21 million. And so Bitcoin's price will only really over the long term go up as adoption
grows.
Happens.
Yeah.
The more it's adopted, the more, and then of course, if people need to use it for anything, it will fractionalize. So it will become, instead of having one Bitcoin, it would be like 0.00 Bitcoin for this transaction, whatever. So
we call them
anyway,
sets.
So the exchange traded fund, Wall Street companies can now offer Bitcoin as an official investment opportunity. And so that means, and the SEC approved it as as an opportunity for that. And so that also means that Bitcoin is not considered a stock, which is, this big
Andrea?
whole other can of worms of
Yes.
the SEC considering cryptocurrencies.
Andrea,
Martien.
maybe for people from Europe, what is the SEC in the United States?
Oh, sure. The SEC is the Securities and Exchange Commission. So it's not actually a governmental entity exactly. It's not like voted in as part. It's a commission, and they're hired by the government to monitor the stock exchange in the United States and make sure and monitor all the firms that are trading stocks and the corporations that are releasing stocks to make sure that nobody's cheating and to make sure that everybody is, that everything is running properly and that investors are not getting scammed, basically. And
they are there to protect the investor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ideally to protect the investor. And so there's been all kinds of issues, with these cryptocurrencies, like what are they, what's the definition of a crypto? And so the SEC had been, suing some of them, like XRP is a famous early crypto that was, the company was sued. Ripple was the company that owns XRP. They were sued by the SEC, and saying that XRP was a stock because they announced the cryptocurrency and had an initial coin offering, kind of like an initial product. So IPO, ICO, and they viewed it as a way of fundraising, and people were buying the crypto to invest in the company, as opposed to buying the crypto to use the crypto in the ecosystem. And so, anyway, the SEC actually lost that case. The XRP was deemed not to be a stock. I mean, cryptos they're not stocks. They're not. But people do invest in them. That's the only thing.
To be honest.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So, it's just kind of an interesting dynamic going on there. And so there's always been this issue with things being legitimate, and the crypto market has been going up and going down like crazy. And now that this exchange traded fund was actually approved by the SEC, it means that crypto is here to stay. That Bitcoin in particular, and then there's supposed to be an Ethereum ETF that potentially will get approved May 23rd. Yeah. And so it means that, hey, these are investments. I think the industry is viewing Bitcoin as a store of value, like gold.
Yeah.
And
Ethereum's
Bitcoin isn't quite as volatile as the others.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what the ETF, and it was very big news in our industry because it means that, we're kind of like government approved.
Yeah,
at least part of the industry is,
And I think that you touched on Ripple and things like that, and I think there has been a lot of bad press over the years in the space. I think this is a really positive step forward of legitimizing it as a genuine investment that people can kind of interact with, that has huge growth potential and value. But Martien, I only wanted to say a few bits, so I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to share how important this ETF news was to me as well. I think to a lot of people. I was actually those days. You remember, guys, that the SEC was hacked on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
I don't know why. And that message came out. I believe it was on a Wednesday evening. It was evening in the Netherlands, and I was sitting on my couch and I was like scrolling at Twitter and refreshing, and then all of a sudden the news break, and then and I said, yeah, it's a go, and then 20 minutes later, oh, it's not a go. And it's that can only happen in crypto. It was such a fun moment. And then the day after, it was like, now it has to get approved, and everybody was waiting for that moment. I was refreshing my telephone. It's like when you have a friend that's about to give birth to a baby, you refresh your telephone the entire time to see it. It was the same thing with the ETF announcement. I was like, refresh on X, of course, on Twitter. And then, yay, it was there. And then everybody expected like Bitcoin to go through the roof, but it was already a bit priced in. I'm not saying was priced in. It was just a bit priced in, and then there was a little drop, and then the guys from the FTX, the GB, I don't remember. They started selling Grayscale.
Yes.
They started selling their Bitcoin positions, but on the other hand, a lot of the sales were absorbed by the BlackRocks and Fidelity and etc. So the price actually was stabilized, and I think it was a really big deal. And I think it's undervalued what happened there.
Right. And also, I think was an effort to keep it stable, because now all these Wall Street firms are coming in. You don't want crazy volatility right off the bat, because then it's like, whoa, look at this thing. This isn't safe for us to be in, even if it's flying up, because it's just, so there was a lot of selling into it and a lot of buying at the same time. And
exactly.
So,
Keeping it
an
stable.
incredible amount of Bitcoin was transacted.
And I think that's
George, what did you
leads back to what
want to
we
say?
were talking about. I say I think it links back to around that kind of like stability, the trust. It's acting more like a stock now, or more like gold. There is going to be a bit more stability in it. I think if you look at there's a wonderful graph of when the gold ETF happened and the growth ever since. I think you're going to see that sharp increase over time. With Bitcoin, but it was great to see the market actually respond a bit more maturely than potentially like an altcoin has in the past, where things just skyrocket up, drop down, and people win, lose, and usually the kind of smaller people lose out on the way. So it's just the maturity's there. The fact this has been signed off is fantastic news, and there's lots of exciting stuff coming this year, along with the Bitcoin halving as well. So that's something we could probably get into for another podcast. And I'm conscious of the time today. So I thought we'd be nice just to close out with maybe a bigger question, or what, I guess this one's for you, Martien. So looking ahead, what do you see as the biggest challenge and opportunity for Web3 in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for now is the UI and UX. Oh my god, it's just a mess. And it's very masculine. It's very like black, purple, it's very techy. And I think if you want to go mainstream with Web3, there should be a more like fluent transformation from Web2. It's just too big of a difference right now. And it's perceived as the wild, wild west. It's just tacky people. And I think there's an opportunity there to improve that UI and UX. So, I mean, user interface, user experience. Like, how do you use an app? How do you use a wallet? And now you have to pay so much attention if you try to make a transfer, for example. And then, it goes wrong. Well, we all know those stories. We will share them as well in this podcast. So I think it's if you're new to this industry, it's pretty complicated. And it's not something that you can learn very quickly. Remember when the app started, you could download an app on the App Store via your telephone. It's very easy to do that. You just click on the app, you download the app, and you start using it. It's super simple. And now with Web3, you have to go to so many hoops to actually use the benefits of Web3. It's just too complicated. But I think, like, you all know those charts, right? That you see the comparison between where we are in Web3 right now in relation to the internet.
Yeah.
And it's like we are in 1996 when I started college. And that's where we are right now in Web3. And so we have a long way to go, but it will change a lot in the coming years. So that's my take.
Look, we've got some great learnings from the Web2 world of how we like to interact, and there's a lot of like kind of assumed learnings in nature of how we interact with applications and the web. And I think because Web3 has been birthed from maybe a more technical background, we've forgot some of those niceties that we have. So there's probably a lot of fusion that Web2 and Web3 can have to really benefit that onboarding experience, to make it feel less less scary in entering the space. And that kind of
Yeah.
leads my final question on to you, Andrea. So if someone was looking to get involved in the Web3 space, what would you say is a good entry point? I know you're kind of been a DGen from day dot, but how would you recommend people kind of interacting or even starting to think about getting into the Web3 space?
Okay, some people might kill me for this,
Yeah.
but I would say, and I actually have gotten in terms of investing in Web3 projects and things like that. Um, and I got some of my neighbors involved, and they did really well, actually. Just going to Coinbase. Okay, if you're brandy new,
Yep.
Coinbase, they have Coinbase Earn in that little section of their site where you can actually, they have really simple explainer videos on what different cryptos do, and then you can earn a little crypto as well by watching the videos. So that's cool, and that really helped. I walked some of my neighbors through some of the projects, you know, and some of those little videos, and they were great little explainer videos. And it depends on where you want to come in with Web3. If you want to come in, from a business perspective, then yeah, there's so much to consume. Watch our show. Eventually,
Good point. I love it.
as we cover things. Attend conferences, and just learn from other business leaders, in Web3. Or, yeah, I mean, you kind of just have to just jump in. I mean, there's this whole,
Yeah.
a lot of the folks in crypto are on Twitter, X. I mean, there's this, I mean, it's even called CT for short, crypto Twitter.
Yeah.
Just follow some of the influencers. There are several influencers that are really good too, that have a lot of great information.
We could do some recommendations for Twitter influencers to follow. Like I have a few
Yes.
that I really like. I
it's a
think it
great
could be
idea.
very helpful to share those influencers we are following.
Nice. What we do is
Yeah,
we can
I think
we
that's
can put
a
a few
good
in
jump in,
the comments below and the message so people can kind of follow in. But there's a lot of, and I think that's quite helpful as well because Twitter or X can be a bit of a minefield and feel a little bit scammy. So if we've got some trusted people we can recommend, that's a really nice way for people to start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Okay.
ladies, I think that's a perfect little time to wrap up. Thank you so much for letting me host the very first one. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. I've been your host today, and we look forward to having you join us next time.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
And thanks, George.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm going to stop here. So